Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Lead with Less. I'm Tash, your host, and today I'm talking about the 5 common leadership challenges that you might be experiencing as a leader or manager and how to overcome them. Let's dive into today's episode, the 5 common challenges that leaders face, or that is just quite a core part of leadership that finds it really overwhelming and challenging. And these are the challenges that I coach on time and time again. And I honestly don't believe that this is only for new leaders who experience these things. I have worked with leaders who have been in their career, been in those positions for 10 plus years, and they still get tripped up on these things. They still find these things hard or challenging to move through. And part of being an exceptional leader is always being curious and looking to grow. So, always knowing that you're not going to know everything, you're not going to have it all figured out, you're not going to be an expert, but being curious and being willing to learn and develop and grow is going to be the thing that's going to set you apart from everyone else. It's going to be the thing that is going to make you the most effective and the most successful in your leadership journey. So, I'm going to dive into each of these 5 common challenges. And if any of these stick out for you, let me know. If any of these, if you're nodding your head along and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm experiencing a lot of that at the moment, please reach out to me. Send me a message on LinkedIn, on Instagram, or flick me an email. All my connection points are in the show notes below this episode. And let me know because I can tailor a lot of my content to help you navigate what is coming up for you day to day in your work and in your life. So, the first common challenge that I see a lot of leaders face is transitioning from individual contributor to being a leader. Those things are very, very different. And this predominantly comes up or is a common challenge in those first, I would say, 4 years of people leadership, people management. And I would say the first 4 years, because once you're kind of getting into 5+ years of people management, people leadership, you are going to be forced to let go of being an individual contributor, or you're going to realize how much it hamstrings you or how much it holds you back and blocks you. But this is quite a big challenge. And I talked about this in an episode actually with Jacob Laurie. We talked about transitioning from team member to people leader, and he shares some really amazing insights in there. So if you want to listen to that episode, we'll link it in the show notes below. But one of the things that comes up a lot with this challenge is the willingness or the comfort with letting go of the doing. So, the achieving, the executing, the ticking off the things, the getting through the to do list, getting things done, to moving into a position where you're facilitating the ability for your team to get things done. That can feel really uncomfortable and that can feel really challenging because there is a lot of pride. There's a lot of sense of completion and progress in ticking things off and getting things done. And when we move into that position of facilitation, where, my job is to help my team get things done, get things across the line, help them to take ownership of their solutions, their problems, things like that, that can create a gap between feeling complete, feeling like we're progressing, to finding a sense of satisfaction and success in seeing them progressing, seeing them getting things done. And so, if this is something that you experience, and I've actually seen this in leaders who are even 5+ years into leading, because there's a lot of comfort in holding on to what we know. So, when we've come from being individual contributors, we are the people who get things done. We are the people who do things. And it can be a lot, it can take a lot to let that idea go, that identity go of being someone who is a doer, whereas a leader is someone who is a facilitator, like I mentioned earlier. And so, to overcome this, there's a couple of things that I'm going to share with you, but there's probably a whole bunch of stuff. If you listen to the Jacob Laurie episode, that we cover a lot in there as well. But fundamentally, it's shifting your mindset of what success and progress and achievement looks like. So if you are someone who feels a lot of achievement and satisfaction with getting things done, what would a mindset shift look like for you to feel successful in seeing your team get things done? So feeling a sense of achievement and success and having a really productive conversation with your team member that helps them get something off their plate, that helps them solve a problem that they are struggling with. So working through the mindset of what would it take for me to feel like I'm achieving, like I'm succeeding from that place, rather than feeling the need to only feel successful and only feel like I'm achieving if I'm doing a lot of stuff. Because the reality is, to be a leader, you need to have space to lead. You need to have space to have coaching and meaningful conversations with your team members. You need to have the space to be able to think bigger picture, look at how your team's workload fits into, the bigger goals that your team needs to achieve, how it fits into the bigger goals of the organization, all of those things. You need to have the space and the time to do that. And if you are filling up your schedule and your workload with lots of doing stuff that actually would benefit your team to do because it'll actually strengthen and develop them, then this is absolutely a mindset shift that needs to happen for you. The other thing that I would also suggest a work on here on overcoming this challenge is learning how to set really good expectations. So often we struggle to let go of control because we think that people can't deliver the way that we do. But often that is a byproduct of unclear expectations. So people don't actually know what we're expecting to see when they do things. So learning how to set really good expectations, clear expectations that people agree to, that they follow, that they understand, is going to make it so much easier to be able to delegate and pass things on, because you know and can create comfort that I've explained things well, I've given the opportunity for them to say that they don't understand, and so I can feel comfortable with letting that go now. So those would be the two things I would recommend working on to overcome this challenge if you are finding it challenging transitioning from an individual contributor to leader, is working on your mindset and working on setting clear expectations. The second challenge that I find that is quite common in leadership is building and maintaining team trust and connection. Now, this is, again, probably, wouldn't say probably, this comes up a lot for new leaders. So again, how do I build trust and connection with my team? I haven't really had to do it before, not as someone who kind of sits above, for lack of a better term, sits above my team, but also people who have been promoted from within the team. So, when someone's gone from being a peer to now being a manager or a team leader or a people leader, whatever term we want to use, it can feel really challenging to know, how do I now become the person that builds trust, that builds connection within my team? And this is absolutely key if you want a high-performing team. Your team needs to feel like they connect with each other, with you as the leader, and there needs to be trust for all aspects of things that happen within team dynamics. So trust that people can show up as their true selves, that they can be authentic, that they will be seen, heard, and be included and valued because of that. Need to be able to trust that if they make mistakes or get things wrong, that that's going to be part of the process, that, that's going to be respected and not, that they're not criticized or ashamed for that. And connection is, people love to know that they're connected to something bigger than themselves, whether that's part of their team goal, their team dream, part of the organization. A lot of millennials, Gen Z, the new Gen, I think it's Gen Alpha. My son, I think, is Gen Alpha. They are coming in with a sense of purpose. They want to be connected to something bigger than themselves. And as a leader, that's your job to create that connection. And that can feel really, really challenging. One of the key ways to do this is first have conversations. So be vulnerable, be courageous, have conversations with your team about what does it look like as a team for us to trust and feel connected. So when we trust each other, what does that look like? What are the things that we are doing each day? What are the things that we say? How do we show up? How do we deal with problems in a team of trust? So one of the things that can feel really challenging on building trust is knowing how to do that, knowing what trust is. And the reason for that is that one person could say trust is this and another person could say trust is that, and then you're kind of figuring out how to manage that. But how do we create a collective definition of trust as a team? The same thing with connection. What does it mean for each of you to feel connected? What does that look like? And then what does it look like as a team when we are connected? What do we see? How do we act? How do we show up? How do we deal with problems? How do we deal with challenges? What does that look like? And when we don't feel connected, what does that look like? That is one of the ways to get started in this process is what are we defining these things as? So often I have conversations with leaders one-on-one and they're like, oh, but I thought that they trusted me. I'm like, okay, well, what does that look like? Have you spoken to them about what trust looks like? And this is something I do with each of my team members that I've worked with, is I have a trust and respect conversation as the first conversation we have. What does it look like for us to trust each other? What are the actions? What does it look like for us to respect each other? What are the actions? And then we have an agreement of what it looks like for how we show up with each other. And this is something that you can do probably a lot more easily if you are coming into a new team. So whether you are going into a new organization or you've transferred to a different team, it can sometimes feel easier to have this conversation because there's a bit of a clean slate there. But if you are stepping up from within a team into this position, this is a really powerful, courageous, brave thing to do as a leader, because it also shows that this is something that matters, that this is something that matters to how you want to lead and matters to how your team feels. Now, I've spoken a lot about feelings as being drivers because we're human, we feel first. People think that they're super logical and that they're logical first. They're not. Emotions, are the depth and breadth of who we are as humans. It's how we have human experiences. So if you want your team to experience trust, to experience connection, to experience safety, to experience belonging, what are the emotions that are necessary to be part of that? What are the actions that we need to do in order to bring those emotions to life? And the second thing that I would recommend here is work through your own mindset challenges of being vulnerable and of not having all the answers. One of the things that leaders find really challenging is not being the know-it-alls, not being the experts. And if there's a gap in knowledge, that creates a lot of self-doubt. But the thing is that leadership isn't about knowing all the answers. It's about bringing people on the journey. It's about helping each of your people reach their own potential. And that isn't about having the answers. That's about being courageous to have the conversations that you need to, and being able to be vulnerable, being able to share parts of yourself that feel a little bit scary, that feel a little bit uncomfortable, but that shows your humanness as a person. And this is not about floodlighting. I will do a whole episode on vulnerability and how to do that well. But really work through your own mindset challenges, your own fears about being a human leader, being vulnerable, being someone who doesn't have all the answers, and being able to work through that mindset process for yourself. Because working through your own mindset stuff is going to be a huge help to helping to navigate things with other people. Common challenge number 3, effective communication and influence. Now, learning how to communicate as an individual contributor is, I've known a lot of amazing communicators that, they're so strong in communicating their expertise, their skills, their strengths. But when we step into leadership, it just seems to almost like sometimes crumble. And I don't know, I think it is the imposter thinking, the self-doubt, all of this questioning of, oh my gosh, I'm a leader now, I need to be a know-it-all, which again, I've already spoken about. But one of the key things that we need when we step into leadership is being able to clearly communicate. This doesn't mean that you have to have all the answers. They're not the same thing, but being able to clearly communicate what it is that you need to say. So knowing how to communicate your vision, knowing how to communicate the reasons why people need to do things, knowing how to communicate and influence to get change, to get things changed, to get buy-in on things. Knowing how to do that well in a way that plays to your strengths is really, really, really key. And one of the reasons why leaders can often feel like they're hitting walls or they're not making progress or things feel really challenging is because so much of the communication is unclear, it's unspecific, it's not connected, it's not related to the bigger picture. And so a couple of ways that you can work through this challenge is understand what your communication style is. Like, how do you actually communicate? Are you someone who communicates with data? Are you someone who communicates with stories? Are you someone who communicates with, gosh, I've like lost all of the other ways that we can potentially communicate. But are you someone who communicates better in written form? You know, when we step into leadership, we need to develop our presentation skills. So that's a whole other topic again. And I know Simon Sinek does amazing work on this, but we need to understand what is our preferred way to communicate. What are the ways that we feel strongest in terms of how we communicate? And then look at how can we leverage that to be able to communicate to other people's styles. Now, one of the key things that I talk about in my leadership program is influencing, so building trusted influence. And a big part of that is learning about the other person. And a key part of that is, how does the other person think? How do they make decisions? Because not everyone makes decisions and thinks in the same way. So some people love to interpret things through stories. Some people love to interpret things through data. Some people love to interpret things through pictures, through graphs, through, all of these different ways. And we need to understand who is it that we are speaking to. So being able to, one, understand your communication style. How do you communicate? And then who are the people that you're speaking to, that you're communicating with? And then how can you play and leverage your strengths to be able to communicate with them? And this is absolutely key, not only for stakeholders, so people, your leadership peers, other people in the business, customers, clients, but this is actually really critical for just directly communicating with your team. If your team can't understand what they're there to do, why they do what they do, how it connects into the rest of the business, how it connects into the vision of the business, the strategy, you are going to have a struggle with building a high performance team, because again, people need to connect to and feel part of something bigger than themselves. And when they know why they do what they do and how it impacts other things, they are far more willing to show up in the best way. So number one is understand your communication style. So what are your strengths there? And then two, what are the communication styles and preferences of the people that you are working closely with most often, so that you can start to develop and strengthen your skill set into communicating with them. Now, this is something that you definitely need to think about and really look at how you can develop and cultivate this. And it's also something that you're going to practice across your whole career. I don't always get it right. I have been a leader for over 7 years now in different ways, and within teams. As a business owner, I've been a leader in various different contexts, and I still don't always get it right. But I know that I'm doing my best. I know that I'm doing my best to develop that skill set again and again and again. And that's what matters. That's the key thing about leadership. Common challenge number 4, having difficult conversations and giving feedback. Oh my God. If I had $1 for every time I talked, a leader through courageous conversations, giving and receiving feedback, I would probably have quite a lot of money. But this is also why this is always such a key part of my leadership development programs. It's even part of my graduate development programs. And it's something that I do one-off workshops for as well, because having hard conversations is one of the things that as humans we love to avoid. It is one of the most uncomfortable things that we struggle to lean into and have, because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or we don't want to damage a relationship. But guess what? The more that you avoid having courageous conversations, the more damaged your relationships are going to become. Because if we aren't able to front hard things, if we aren't able to courageously speak and share things that are uncomfortable and hard, we are never going to reach our full potential or reach the full potential of whatever the relationship or dynamic could be that we are in. And so having the skills and the frameworks and the tools to be able to have courageous conversations, to know how to do that well, is one of the key things that you are absolutely going to need to develop. If you do not know how to give good, radical, candid feedback that is direct and kind, you are going to experience a lot of missed opportunities for developing your team, for developing the people around you. People need feedback in order to grow. People who say, "Oh, I don't need feedback," are liars. They're either overly arrogant in terms of their own skill sets and capability and have no self-awareness, or they're not interested in developing and growing their potential. People who want to be the best versions of themselves, who want to give the best to the work that they do, are people that are open to feedback, people who have growth mindsets. So you need to learn how to give feedback in a way that sticks and that helps people develop. So a couple of things that you can do here. Number one, if courageous conversations and giving feedback is something that literally creates an uncomfortable response in your body, I want you to work through the mindset blocks that comes up when you think about having courageous conversations and giving feedback. What is it about those two scenarios that make you feel uncomfortable, that make you want to avoid going through this process? Again, so much of our inability to do these things is because of what's going on in our mind from past experiences, from stories that we're telling ourselves. And we need to work through that so that we can go through the process and do the things that we need to do. So that's the first thing. The second thing is learn how to step into uncomfortable situations, knowing that you're doing it for the best of the situation. So removing your ego, one of the reasons why we don't want to do these things is because we don't want to hurt someone. But that makes it about us. Like, I don't want to hurt someone's feelings. That makes this about me. It doesn't make it about the person. We can give really clear, direct, necessary feedback without intentionally hurting someone's feelings. We can't control if we're going to hurt someone's feelings, but that's not for us to control. And so learning how to step into conversations and focusing on how this is beneficial for them, how this is going to help them grow, is one of the best things that you can do. And one of the best ways that we can do that is by making sure that courageous conversations and feedback are specific, that they are specific to a key point that you are going to talk about, rather than trying to, sugarcoat and fluffy up everything to make yourself feel better, which makes feedback a worse experience. So developing your ability, your courage to have hard conversations and to give feedback is going to do you wonders in how you show up as a leader and how you develop the people around you. And the fifth common challenge is emotional intelligence and self-awareness as a leader. Now, emotional intelligence is one of the most critical parts of being a great leader. It's our ability to recognize ourselves, our own emotional states, and our ability to recognize and read what is going on with other people and people around us. So being able to be aware of what other people are experiencing as a result of what's happening. So one of the ways that we develop emotional intelligence is by developing self-awareness. So if you do not know yourself well, if you do not know why you react to certain things the way that you do, or if you don't know why things frustrate you and make you angry, or you don't know how to recognize when you're having an emotional response or emotional reaction, it's going to be really challenging to attune yourself to what other people are experiencing. And it's going to be really challenging to be able to navigate tricky situations where there are a lot of different emotions going on, which is the reality of managing people. So building self-awareness can be done in a couple of ways. So the first way is, in terms of emotions, is have a regular practice where you tap into how it is that you're feeling. So throughout the day, use some prompts to check in, okay, how am I feeling right now? Or if you notice yourself having an emotional reaction to something, check in and go, okay, what's happening? Why is that happening? What's coming up for me? So that you can understand what is going on. You can start to reflect on it. And then you can go, okay, what is it that I need to move through that? So that's the first thing, is building that self-reflection practice with yourself to get to know yourself better, to get to know who you are, why you do the things that you do, why you react to things the way that you do, so that you can then use that information to go, okay, How do I want to now do things differently? It's not a criticism. We're not judging. We're just understanding. We're wanting to get to know ourselves better so that we can do better with that knowledge. The second thing is to pay more attention to what's going on around you. So, when you are in a conversation with someone, when you are in a meeting, spend more time listening and observing what's going on than you do talking or than you do thinking about what else is going on in your life. One of the ways that we miss emotional cues is because we are in our heads thinking about what's going on in our to do list, our emails, tomorrow, tonight, whatever, yesterday, or we are talking too much. And as a leader, your job isn't to talk. Your job is to listen, to ask questions, and to empower the people around you to be the problem solvers to their own problems. That is our job. And this is another tact to building emotional intelligence is observe more. So observe in a team meeting, like, is there someone who takes up most of the space talking? If there is, what are the cues that other people are showing? How are other people reacting to that? If when when you state something, so when you or delegate tasks, or when you shut down a conversation, or when you communicate something from leadership, whatever, pay attention to how that's received. Like when you share information, pause and just watch. How is that landing? How are people reacting? What are they doing? What are they, what's their body doing? That will help you to observe and pay attention to what's actually going on. That helps to develop social awareness. We need to have an aspect of social awareness so that we can see what is happening as a result of, what people are doing as a result of what is happening. And once you start to develop your own self-awareness with your emotional state. So how are you feeling moment to moment? What are the things that irk you the most? What are the things that bring you joy? All of those things. Then also practicing building social awareness. You are going to notice how differently you show up with the people around you. You are going to notice how much you actually don't listen, how much you do talk, how much you do try and problem solve when maybe that's not the right thing, or how different situations impact people differently, and then how you might be able to adapt the way that you show up and have conversations with those people so that you can best serve them in that moment. So that's what I would share on how you can overcome the challenge of lack of emotional intelligence and self-awareness. It's absolutely something that can be developed, that can be built, that can be cultivated. It's not something that you're just born with. So I would definitely recommend working on that if that is a gap that you currently have in your skill set. So those are the 5 common challenges that I see in leadership, and I've just shared a couple of points for each one on what you can do to work on them. So transitioning from individual contributor to leader, building and maintaining team trust and connection, effective communication and being able to influence, handling difficult conversations and giving feedback, and then developing emotional intelligence and self-awareness. So if any of those challenges are challenges that you're currently experiencing, please let me know. Please let me know what currently feels like a block and how to overcome that and how to develop that so that you can develop the skill set and become the most effective and successful leader that you can be. And with that, as I mentioned, a lot of things are starting to shift over here. And I have shifted my Confidently Thriving program into now being the VIP Leaders Coaching Program, Value Impact People Leaders. So this is for leaders who want to ground themselves into being the most valuable, impactful, and people-focused leaders that you can be. And throughout the program, you are going to learn the skills and the knowledge and the tools and frameworks on how to work through each of these key challenges that I spoke through in today's episode, as well as how to effectively manage your time and your energy so that you can focus on the things that really matter. So if you are looking for a leadership development program because you know that you want to become an even better leader, or you are an emerging leader who is about to step into their first role, this program is going to be perfect for you. It is a 12-week program where we dive into the 6 essential skills of leadership. And you will have me along the way with you for the whole 3 months, 2 weeks in between each module, so you can really practice and implement what it is that you are developing as a leader. And you will have accountability, community, and support around you as well. So if you want to find out more about VIP Leaders, we are kicking off in September. So head down into the show notes, grab the link that will take you to the page to grab the brochure and find out more about the program. If you have any questions about it, feel free to reach out to me as well. And even if this program might not be right for you, but you know someone in your team would be a good fit for this, or even a colleague or friend, please forward it on to them as well. I would love to see you in there if it is a good fit. Otherwise, I really hope that this episode has been really helpful for you. Again, please let me know what you took away, what really landed, and I will see you again next week.